The Zephyrian High Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as Ambassador Kethtar adjusted his ceremonial robes for the third time in 10 minutes. The crystalline walls of the council chamber reflected the pale blue light of their homeworld's twin suns, casting dancing shadows across the assembled delegates. Today marked the most important diplomatic event in their species' history, first contact with a previously unknown civilization. "The transmission array is ready, Ambassador," announced Chief Technician Velnara, her 6 arms working frantically across the quantum communication console. "We've locked onto their planetary communication networks. The universal translator should handle any language barriers." Kethtar nodded, his throat sac inflating with anticipation. The Zephyrians had spent centuries expanding across the galaxy, establishing trade routes and diplomatic relations with dozens of peaceful species. Their philosophy was simple: avoid conflict at all costs, negotiate for mutual benefit, and never, under any circumstances, engage with aggressive civilizations. "Remind me of the species designation again?" Kethtar asked, reviewing the data tablet in his primary hands while his secondary hand smoothed his diplomatic sash. "They call themselves humans, sir. Their planet is designated as Terra 3, located in what they refer to as the Sol system. Our preliminary scans indicate a garden world with abundant water and moderate climate zones. The inhabitants appear to be carbon-based bipeds with relatively short lifespans of approximately 100 rotations." Council leader Thexmenos leaned forward, her ancient form casting a long shadow across the chamber floor. "Have we confirmed their technological level? Are they capable of interstellar communication?" "Yes, Council leader. They possess quantum communication capabilities, though their technology appears more primitive than ours. Our xenobiologists classify them as level 2.3 on the galactic civilization scale. They should be quite manageable for standard diplomatic protocols." The assessment seemed reasonable to everyone present. Level 2.3 civilizations were typically peaceful traders or scholars focused on art, philosophy, and gentle scientific advancement. The Zephyrians had successfully established relationships with 47 such civilizations without a single military incident. "Excellent," Kethtar said, straightening his shoulders. "Begin the transmission. Use Standard Diplomatic Protocol 7, friendly greeting, peaceful intentions, and immediate invitation for cultural exchange." The quantum transmitter hummed to life, its crystalline core pulsing with ethereal energy. Across the vast emptiness of space, the message traveled faster than light, carrying the hopes and expectations of an entire civilization. On the receiving end, deep within a heavily fortified military compound on Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen stared at the incoming transmission with growing concern. The message had bypassed every security protocol they possessed, appearing directly on screens throughout the global defense network. "Sir, we're receiving what appears to be a first contact scenario," reported Lieutenant Commander Martinez, his voice tight with tension. "The message is being automatically translated into multiple Earth languages simultaneously." Admiral Chen had spent 30 years preparing for this moment, though she'd always imagined it would happen differently. The protocols were clear. Any alien contact was to be treated as a potential threat until proven otherwise. Earth had learned this lesson the hard way during the simulation wars of 2387, when hostile AI had nearly destroyed human civilization through seemingly friendly diplomatic overtures. "Put it through," she ordered, her hand unconsciously moving to the red alert button. The chamber filled with a melodious, almost song-like voice, speaking perfect English. "Greetings, peaceful inhabitants of Terra 3. We are the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps, representatives of the Galactic Trade Confederation. We come seeking friendship, cultural exchange, and mutually beneficial trade agreements. Our species has successfully established peaceful relationships with numerous civilizations, and we hope to add your world to our growing alliance of prosperity and knowledge sharing." Around the command center, military personnel exchanged glances. To most of the galaxy, this would have seemed like a wonderful opportunity. To humans, it sounded like a reconnaissance probe. "Admiral," whispered Colonel Harrison, "this matches the infiltration patterns from the Kepler incident. Friendly approach, immediate offers of technology sharing, emphasis on peaceful intentions." Admiral Chen nodded grimly. Humanity had learned to be suspicious of gifts from strangers, especially strangers with superior technology. The scars from their encounters with the machine intelligences of Proxima Centauri still ran deep in human military doctrine. "Prepare response protocol Delta 7, she commanded. "Full defensive posture, but maintain diplomatic facade. I want every weapon system online within the hour." Back on the Zephyrian homeworld, the Council waited eagerly for a response. Their xenobiologists had prepared extensive cultural briefs about potential human customs, dietary preferences, and artistic traditions they might discuss during the exchange. "The response should arrive any moment," Velnara announced cheerfully. "Standard protocol suggests they'll likely express gratitude for contact and curiosity about our culture." When the human response finally arrived, it was nothing like what they expected. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main display, flanked by military insignia and the imposing backdrop of a strategic command center. Her expression was stern, professional, and utterly devoid of the warmth the Zephyrians had anticipated. "To the representatives of the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps," Admiral Chen began, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to life and death decisions. "Humanity acknowledges your transmission. However, we must inform you that any approach to our system will be considered an act of aggression. We have established a defensive perimeter extending 2.7 light-years from our star. Any vessel crossing this boundary without explicit permission will be engaged and destroyed." The Zephyrian Council chamber fell silent. Keth Tar's throat sac deflated completely, and several junior diplomats began making worried, chittering sounds. "Furthermore," Admiral Chen continued, "we require complete technical specifications of your vessels, weapons capabilities, and the exact location of your homeworld before any diplomatic discussion can proceed. You have 72 Earth hours to comply with these demands." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the Zephyrians staring at a blank screen. Did they just threaten us?" whispered Velnara, her 6 arms trembling slightly. "Council leader." Thexaminos rose slowly from her seat, her ancient eyes wide with disbelief. "In 3,000 years of diplomatic contact, no species has ever responded to a peaceful greeting with threats of destruction." Keth Tar was frantically scrolling through his diplomatic protocols, searching for any precedent for this situation. Perhaps there was a translation error? Maybe their cultural context makes them seem more aggressive than they actually are? "Run a deep scan of their planet," ordered Thexaminos. "I want to know everything about this species. Their history, their wars, their technology. There must be something we're missing." As the Zephyrian science teams began their comprehensive analysis of Earth, they slowly uncovered the terrifying truth about humanity. These weren't the peaceful gardeners they'd expected to find. Earth's surface was scarred by the remnants of countless wars, its oceans filled with the hulks of military vessels, and its orbital space dominated by weapon platforms that could glass entire continents. The deeper they dug into human history, the more horrified they became. Humans didn't just fight other species, they fought each other with a creativity and brutality that defied comprehension. They'd weaponized diseases, turned their own atmosphere into a weapon, and had somehow survived multiple near-extinction events that would have destroyed any sane civilization. "Council leader," reported Chief Xenobiologist Murthak, his voice barely above a whisper, "I believe we've made a terrible mistake. These humans, they're not a level 2.3 civilization. There's something else entirely. What do you mean? Thexminos demanded. According to their historical records, they've fought over 14,000 separate wars in the last 5,000 years. They've developed over 300 distinct ways to destroy entire planets. And Council Leader... Murthak paused, his form shaking with fear. They live on a Class 12 death world. The chamber erupted in panicked chittering. Class 12, death worlds were theoretical constructs, planets so hostile that no known species could possibly evolve there. The gravity alone should have crushed any complex life forms, and the atmospheric composition was barely within the margins of habitability. How is that possible? Kethtar asked, his diplomatic composure finally cracking. They didn't just evolve on a death world, Murthak continued. They thrived on it. Everything on their planet is trying to kill them. The plants are poisonous, the animals are predators, the weather systems are violent enough to destroy cities, and they consider all of this normal. As the horrible reality of their situation dawned on the Zephyrian Council, Admiral Chen was briefing her senior staff on humanity's response strategy. Intelligence suggests the Zephyrians are a peaceful species with no significant military capabilities, she reported. However, we cannot assume this is accurate. Their technology appears superior to ours in several key areas, particularly faster-than-light communication and possibly travel. What's our strategic assessment? Asked General Morrison. We treat this as a potential invasion scenario until proven otherwise. If they're genuinely peaceful, they'll understand our caution. If they're hostile, we'll be ready for them. What neither species realized was that they were about to become trapped in a spiral of mutual misunderstanding that would reshape the political landscape of the entire galaxy. The Zephyrians saw humans as terrifyingly aggressive monsters who threatened galactic peace. Humans saw the Zephyrians as potential conquerors, probing their defenses with false promises of friendship. Both species were wrong, but their misconceptions would soon have consequences that reached far beyond their two worlds. 3 days after the initial contact, the situation had escalated beyond anyone's expectations. The Zephyrian High Council convened an emergency session, their crystalline chamber now buzzing with the urgent energy of a species facing an existential crisis. The humans have deployed additional weapon platforms around their system, reported Fleet Commander Zix Thala, her normally calm demeanor showing cracks of genuine fear. Our long-range sensors detect massive energy signatures consistent with planet-killing weaponry. They're not just defending themselves, they're preparing for war. Ambassador Keth Tar paced nervously around the chamber, his diplomatic training warring with his survival instincts. Perhaps if we withdraw our monitoring vessels, they might see it as a gesture of goodwill. Absolutely not, interrupted Council Leader Thexminos. Our xenobiologists have completed their analysis of human psychology. These creatures interpret any sign of weakness as an invitation to attack. Withdrawal would only convince them that we're planning something devious. The irony was lost on the Zephyrians. In their desperate attempt to understand human behavior, they had focused entirely on humanity's military history while completely ignoring their diplomatic achievements. They saw the wars but missed the peace treaties. They noticed the weapons but overlooked the hospitals. To them, humans appeared as pure predators who had somehow achieved spaceflight. "What do our allies suggest?" asked Keth Tar. Thexminos activated the holographic display, showing representatives from across the Galactic Trade Confederation. The Malarian delegate, a crystalline being whose species had mastered energy manipulation, spoke first. The Malarian Collective recommends immediate quarantine of the human system. We cannot allow a species this aggressive to spread throughout the galaxy. Our simulations show that contact with humans could destabilize peaceful civilizations for generations. The Zeridian representative, resembling a floating collection of geometric shapes, pulsed with agreement. The Zeridian unity concurs, Our mathematical models indicate a 97.3% probability that humans will attempt territorial expansion within 50 standard years of achieving faster-than-light travel. One by one, each species in the Confederation expressed similar sentiments. The decision seemed unanimous. Humanity posed an unacceptable threat to galactic peace. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Chen was dealing with her own crisis. The alien vessels hadn't withdrawn as demanded, and intelligence reports suggested more ships were arriving daily at the edge of their sensor range. "Admiral, we're detecting quantum communication bursts between the alien vessels and several unknown points in space," reported Lieutenant Commander Martinez. "They're coordinating with someone, possibly calling for reinforcements." Colonel Harrison pulled up tactical displays showing the positioning of alien ships around their solar system. "It's a classic encirclement pattern, ma'am. They're setting up for a siege." Admiral Chen studied the display, her military experience reading the situation clearly. The aliens had responded to humanity's defensive posture by bringing in more ships and establishing a perimeter. In human terms, this was the prelude to an attack. "Initiate Protocol Omega," she ordered. "Contact all Earth Defense Fleet commanders. We're upgrading this to a full threat scenario." "Ma'am, should we reach out to our colonial worlds? New Geneva and the Armstrong Station could provide additional resources." Admiral Chen shook her head. "Negative. If this goes badly, I want our off-world colonies to have deniability. They need to survive even if Earth doesn't." The order sent shockwaves through Earth's military establishment. Protocol Omega hadn't been activated since the AI Wars, and its implementation meant that humanity's homeworld was considered to be under imminent threat of annihilation. What followed was a display of human preparedness that would have terrified the Zephyrians if they had truly understood what they were seeing. Within hours, weapon platforms that had been disguised as communication satellites powered up and revealed themselves to be massive particle beam arrays. Asteroid mining operations suddenly deployed as mobile weapons platforms. Even civilian space stations activated defensive systems that could have obliterated small fleets. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, Earth's leading xenobiologist, watched the military preparations with growing concern. She had been studying the alien transmissions since first contact, and her analysis painted a very different picture than the military assessment. "Admiral, I request permission to address the command staff," she said, entering the war room with a data pad clutched in her hands. Admiral Chen looked up from the tactical displays. "Doctor, unless you have information about alien weapons capabilities, I don't have time for academic theories." "That's exactly what I have, Admiral. These aliens aren't preparing for an attack. They're terrified of us." The room fell silent. Colonel Harrison was the first to speak. "Doctor, with respect, they've surrounded our system with warships." "No, they haven't," Dr. Reeves replied, pulling up her analysis on the main display. "Look at their ship configurations. These aren't military vessels, they're exploration and research ships. The energy signatures we're detecting aren't weapons. They're sensors. They're studying us because they don't understand what we are." Admiral Chen frowned, studying the data. "Explain." "Their initial transmission wasn't a probe or a trick. It was genuine diplomatic contact. But when we responded with military threats, they panicked. According to their historical patterns with other species, they've never encountered a civilization that responded to peaceful contact with aggression." "So, what are you suggesting, Doctor?" "I think we're dealing with a species that's genuinely peaceful, but completely unprepared for contact with a military culture like ours. They're probably calling for help because they think we're about to invade their space." The revelation hung in the air like a loaded weapon. If Dr. Reeves was correct, humanity had just triggered the first interstellar diplomatic crisis in galactic history. Back in Zephyrian space, the situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. The Galactic Trade Confederation had voted to implement a full quarantine of human space, but that decision had unexpected consequences. "Council leader," reported Fleet Commander Zix Thala. "We're detecting massive energy spikes from the human system. They appear to be powering up weapon systems we didn't even know they possessed." The holographic display showed a tactical overview of human space, now bristling with active weapon signatures. To the Zephyrians, it looked like humanity was preparing to break out of their system and begin a campaign of galactic conquest. "How many weapons platforms do they have?" asked Kethtar, his voice barely above a whisper. "Over 15,000 active signatures, with more coming online every hour. Council leader, their entire civilization appears to be a military installation disguised as a peaceful colony." Thexaminos felt her life essence dim with despair. In their attempt to contain the human threat, they had apparently triggered some kind of defensive protocol that was turning the entire human system into a fortress. "Are our quarantine forces sufficient to contain them if they attempt to break out?" Zix Thala's throat sac inflated with nervous energy. "Council leader, I'm not certain our entire Confederation fleet would be sufficient. The energy readings we're detecting suggest they have weapons capable of destroying entire star systems." The truth was somewhat less dramatic, but the Zephyrians had no way of knowing that. Humanity's defensive preparations were indeed massive, but they were designed to protect Earth, not conquer the galaxy. The weapons platforms were powerful, but their range was limited to the immediate vicinity of human space. However, the Zephyrians were interpreting everything through the lens of their fear. They saw preparation for defense and assumed preparation for attack. They saw military readiness and assumed expansionist ambitions. "We need to contact our allies," Thexaminos decided. "If humanity breaks containment, we'll need every available ship to stop them." The call went out across the Confederation, and the response was immediate. Species that had never cooperated on military matters suddenly found common cause in the face of the perceived human threat. Ancient rivals put aside territorial disputes to contribute ships and resources to the growing fleet assembling at the edge of human space. Dr. Sarah Kim, the Confederation's leading expert on aggressive species psychology, addressed the assembled fleet commanders via quantum link. "Based on our analysis of human behavior patterns, we believe they will attempt to break quarantine within the next planetary rotation. Their psychology is fundamentally different from ours. They view any constraint on their movement as an act of war." "What do we know about their tactical capabilities?" asked Fleet Admiral Mergoth of the Crystalline Hegemony. "Extremely adaptable and unpredictable. Humans appear to be natural strategists who excel at asymmetric warfare. They don't fight according to established patterns. They create new ones based on their opponent's weaknesses." The briefing continued for hours, painting an increasingly terrifying picture of human capabilities. What the Confederation didn't realize was that they were creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Their massive fleet buildup was being detected by human sensors, confirming Admiral Chen's worst fears about alien intentions. "Admiral, we're detecting over 2,000 alien vessels at the edge of our sensor range," reported Commander Martinez. "This is definitely an invasion fleet." Admiral Chen stared at the tactical display, watching as more alien ships continued to arrive. The numbers were overwhelming, but humanity had faced impossible odds before. "Are our off-world colonies still maintaining communication silence?" "Yes, ma'am. They're running dark protocols. If Earth falls, they'll have time to prepare or evacuate." "Good. Signal the fleet commanders. Operation Last Stand is now in effect." The order activated humanity's ultimate contingency plan. If Earth was going to fall, they would make the cost so high that no alien species would ever again consider attacking humanity. Every available weapon would be brought to bear, every defensive system would fight until destroyed, and if necessary, they would detonate their own star rather than allow their homeworld to be conquered. Neither species realized that they were both preparing for a war that neither of them actually wanted. The Zephyrians were mobilizing to contain what they saw as an existential threat to galactic peace. Humans were preparing to defend their homeworld against what they perceived as an overwhelming invasion force. The stage was set for the most devastating conflict in galactic history, born from mutual misunderstanding and fueled by each species' worst assumptions about the other. As both fleets prepared for battle, a small group of individuals on both sides began to realize that something had gone terribly, catastrophically wrong. The moment that would define the future of galactic civilization began with a single, desperate transmission from an unexpected source. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves had spent the last 18 hours working frantically in her xenobiology lab, racing against time as both fleets prepared for what could only end in catastrophe. She had analyzed every piece of alien communication data, studied their ship movements, and cross-referenced their behavior patterns with known peaceful species protocols from Earth's own history. "Computer, open a direct channel to the alien fleet," she commanded. "Dr. Reeves, that channel is restricted to military personnel only," replied the AI system. "Override code Omega 77 Alpha, Scientific Emergency Protocol." The channel opened, and Dr. Reeves found herself looking at a translator screen that would carry her words directly to the Zephyrian command ship. She had one chance to prevent a war that would devastate both civilizations. "To the Zephyrian fleet commanders, this is Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, Chief Xenobiologist of Earth. I believe there has been a terrible misunderstanding." Aboard the Zephyrian flagship, Ambassador Kethtar nearly fell from his perch when the human transmission came through. The image showed a single human female, notably without military insignia, speaking in calm, measured tones that were completely different from the aggressive posturing they'd experienced before. "Should we respond?" asked Fleet Commander Zix Thala. Council Leader Thex Minos, who had joined the fleet as the situation escalated, studied the human's body language. Even through the universal translator, something about this individual seemed different from the military representatives they'd encountered. "Yes, but carefully. This could be a new form of psychological warfare." "Dr. Reeves," came the translated response, "this is Ambassador Kethtar of the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps. We are listening, though we must warn you that our analysis indicates your species poses a significant threat to galactic stability." Dr. Reeves felt a surge of relief. They were willing to communicate, which meant there was still hope. "Ambassador, I believe our species have fundamentally misunderstood each other. You see us as aggressors, and we see you as invaders. But I think both interpretations are wrong." She activated her data display, showing comparative analyses of Zephyrian and human behavior patterns. "Your initial contact followed standard peaceful diplomatic protocols. When we responded with military threats, you interpreted this as evidence that we're naturally aggressive. But what you don't understand is that humans have a historical trauma response to unexpected contact. We've learned to be cautious because trust without verification has cost us dearly in the past." On the Zephyrian flagship, Chief Xenobiologist Murthak was frantically analyzing Dr. Reeves's data transmission. What he found contradicted everything they thought they knew about humans. "Ambassador," he whispered urgently, "the human is transmitting detailed psychological profiles and historical data. If this information is accurate, their species isn't naturally aggressive. They're naturally defensive." Kethtar leaned forward, studying the human scientist more carefully. "Explain the difference." Dr. Reeves continued her explanation, unaware of the debate happening on the alien ship. "Humans don't attack because we want to conquer. We attack because we're afraid of being conquered. Every weapon system you've detected, every defensive platform we've activated, it's all designed to protect our homeworld, not to invade yours." She paused, letting that sink in before delivering the crucial point. "Ambassador, you said your species has established peaceful relationships with 47 civilizations. Has any of those species ever betrayed that trust?" The question struck Kethtar like a physical blow. In 3,000 years of Zephyrian diplomatic history, No species had ever violated a peace agreement or used diplomatic contact as a prelude to invasion. No, he admitted slowly. Never. Then you've been incredibly fortunate, Dr. Reeves replied. Humanity has had first contact 17 times in our history, counting your approach. 14 of those contacts turned hostile. We've learned to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. The silence that followed was deafening. On both sides of the quantum communication link, individuals began to realize the scope of the tragedy that was unfolding. Meanwhile, Admiral Chen had discovered Dr. Reeves' unauthorized communication and was firming her way to the xenobiology lab. "Doctor, you are in direct violation of military protocols," she announced, bursting through the lab doors with a security escort. "Admiral, please," Dr. Reeves said without turning away from her console. "I think I can prevent this war. By revealing our defensive positions to the enemy, by proving they're not our enemy." Admiral Chen moved to terminate the connection, but Dr. Reeves's next words stopped her cold. "Admiral, they're as terrified of us as we are of them. Look at their fleet composition." She pulled up tactical data showing the alien vessels. "These aren't warships, Admiral. They're exploration vessels with defensive modifications. They're not here to invade us. They're here because they think we're about to invade them." The revelation hit Admiral Chen like a thunderbolt. She had spent so many years preparing for hostile first contact that she hadn't considered the possibility of defensive first contact. "Are you certain about this assessment, Doctor?" "Look at their positioning, Admiral. If they wanted to attack Earth, they'd establish a blockade to prevent evacuation and position assault ships for orbital bombardment. Instead, they're maintaining a perimeter that suggests containment, not conquest." Admiral Chen studied the tactical displays with new eyes, and slowly, the alien strategy began to make sense from a completely different perspective. Back on the Zephyrian flagship, Ambassador Keth Tar was having a similar revelation. "Dr. Reeves, if your species is naturally defensive rather than aggressive, why did your military representative threaten to destroy any ship that approached your system?" "Because, Ambassador, that's exactly what a defensive species does. We establish clear boundaries and warn potential threats to stay away. If your people had simply respected our request for distance, none of this would have escalated." Chief Xenobiologist Merthak interrupted the conversation with an urgent discovery. "Ambassador, I've been analyzing human historical data. Their defensive responses aren't random. They follow predictable patterns based on the behavior of approaching forces." "What do you mean?" "When the humans demanded our technical specifications and warned us to stay away, they were following a protocol designed to distinguish between peaceful and hostile visitors. A peaceful species would provide the requested information and respect the boundary. A hostile species would refuse and continue approaching." The horrible irony became clear to everyone on the Zephyrian command ship. By refusing to provide their specifications and instead calling for more ships, they had inadvertently confirmed every human suspicion about their hostile intentions. "Dr. Reeves," Keth Tar said slowly, "our species may have made a catastrophic error in judgment." "We both did, Ambassador, but it's not too late to correct it." Admiral Chen stepped forward, taking control of the communication. "This is Admiral Chen. If your people are willing to demonstrate peaceful intentions, humanity is prepared to stand down from defensive positions." "What would constitute such a demonstration?" asked Keth Tar. Dr. Reeves looked at Admiral Chen, who nodded for her to respond. "Withdraw your fleet to a distance of 5 light-years from our system and provide the technical specifications we originally requested. In return, we'll power down our defensive systems and Admiral Chen will participate directly in diplomatic discussions." The proposal was simultaneously simple and revolutionary. Both species would have to overcome their fear and take a leap of faith. Council leader Thex Minos, who had been listening to the entire exchange, made a decision that would reshape galactic history. "Admiral Chen, Dr. Reeves, the Zephyrian Confederation accepts your terms. We will withdraw our vessels and transmit all requested technical data within the next 4 hours. Understood, Admiral Chen replied. We'll begin powering down defensive systems as soon as your withdrawal is confirmed. The next several hours were tense, as both species carefully implemented the de-escalation protocol. Zephyrian ships slowly withdrew from human space, while Earth's weapon platforms gradually powered down. Each step was monitored and verified by both sides, building trust one small action at a time. When the alien fleet reached the agreed-upon distance, something unexpected happened. Instead of maintaining their formation, the ships began arranging themselves in what human observers recognized as a peaceful diplomatic formation, a pattern that made them vulnerable to attack but demonstrated complete non-hostile intent. "Admiral," reported Commander Martinez, "the aliens are transmitting detailed technical specifications for every ship in their fleet, plus star charts showing their homeworld location and trade routes." Admiral Chen stared at the data in amazement. The aliens weren't just withdrawing, they were making themselves completely transparent, sharing information that would allow humanity to find and attack their homeworld if they chose to do so. That's not a military withdrawal, she realized. That's a gesture of absolute trust. Dr. Reeves smiled for the first time in days. "Ambassador Kethtar, humanity accepts your gesture of trust. We're transmitting our own technical specifications and star charts. We also extend an invitation for direct diplomatic contact." The crisis was over, but its resolution had consequences that neither species had anticipated. Within weeks, news of the human Zephyrian crisis spread throughout the galaxy. Other species learned that the humans, the supposedly aggressive Deathworlders who had threatened to destroy any approaching ship, had actually been responding defensively to what they perceived as a hostile approach. The revelation changed everything. Species that had planned to avoid human space entirely suddenly became curious about these strange beings who could be so aggressive in defense, yet so reasonable in negotiation. Trade requests began arriving within months as civilizations realized that humans might be the perfect partners for dangerous ventures into unexplored space. The Zephyrians, meanwhile, found themselves in the unexpected position of being humanity's advocates in galactic politics. Their first-hand experience with human defensive psychology made them ideal mediators for future contacts. Dr. Reeves became Earth's first xenobiological ambassador, developing protocols for peaceful first contact that would prevent similar misunderstandings. Admiral Chen found herself commanding not a defensive force, but a protection fleet that escorted alien diplomats safely to Earth. Ambassador Kethtar and Admiral Chen eventually met in person aboard a jointly constructed diplomatic station in neutral space. The meeting between the nervous diplomat and the stern military officer became the foundation for the human Zephyrian alliance, the first true partnership between a defensive species and a peaceful one. The galaxy learned an important lesson from the crisis. Sometimes the most dangerous misunderstandings arise not from malice, but from fear. And sometimes, the species that seem most threatening are simply the ones that have learned to be careful. Years later, when historians studied the event that became known as the Great Misunderstanding, they would note that it marked the beginning of a new era in galactic politics. Humanity's reputation as fierce defenders made them valuable allies for peaceful species, while their proven ability to choose diplomacy over warfare made them trusted partners. The aliens had indeed accidentally called the Deathworlders, but instead of paying a price in blood and destruction, they paid in pride and assumptions. In return, they gained something far more valuable: proof that even the most dangerous species in the galaxy could choose peace, if given a reason to trust.